And welcome back to 757 Saturday Sports Talk, where we are streaming all over the web on our YouTube channel with Cova Sports TV, as well as on Twitter or X at 757 Sports Talk, Instagram, Facebook, all over the place. And we thank you for tuning in wherever you may be. We're now privileged to be joined by one of the best in the business covering the National Football League. She's part of NBC Sports Pro Football Talk. You read her work all the time online. You see her work. Charean Williams so kind of joined us from Vegas and the Super Bowl this weekend. Charean, how you been? Good to see you.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Matthew. I've got a great view out the window of Allegiant Stadium. I think it's ready for these two teams. It's been a long week. I think we're all ready to go. We're fired up.
Yeah, I want to go there with you. Obviously, the city of being in Las Vegas for this Super Bowl, it's a special one. Obviously, it's a rematch from a few years back with San Francisco and Kansas City. And we actually have a little bit of a local angle for us here in Virginia because a couple of players on the Chiefs roster, one of which has been dinged up, and Derek Nottie won a Super Bowl ring a few years ago. Also, Cole Christensen, a linebacker from Suffolk. But obviously, a lot of the talk about Taylor Swift and her relationship with Travis Kelce, but also in Sin City, Vegas, what's kind of your feel of the week, how it's been? There hasn't really been a whole lot of media hoopla or anything that's been a distraction, if you will. How would you kind of grade the week leading up to the big game this weekend?
Yeah, I think it's been fun. Vegas is Vegas. And I remember telling an NFL official many years ago now that wouldn't it be great to have a Super Bowl in Vegas? He said, absolutely, it'd be great to have a Super Bowl in Vegas. I agree with you. It'll never happen. So, 6 years ago, obviously the Supreme Court said we're going to have state by state gambling, and that kind of opened things up for a team to come to Vegas and now for the Super Bowl to be here. And I'm going to be really surprised if Vegas is not in the rotation, the Super Bowl rotation. And I think it will be back here sooner than later. We know the next three, so it's not going to be back the next 3 years. And then I think they go back to Florida. So it's probably going to be looking at 5 to 6 year range. I think we're back here for another Super Bowl. It's been a great week. And like I said, Vegas is Vegas.
Yeah, I want to break down some of the game with you in a moment here, but it's interesting. I've heard some comments of some loving it, some disliking it. You certainly see all the different wagering, gambling ads everywhere you turn on TV, not just with the NFL, but all sports nowadays, with whatever sports book it might be. And then you hear about all the detractors saying, "Oh, the NFL, they're going to a city that they were so against and all this with gambling." Nonetheless, we've had Super Bowls in the past where players get in trouble day before, week before, different things. So it feels like a lot of that's been curtailed, and there's not as much, I guess you could say, drama or concern as maybe there was 10, 20, 25 years ago. Is that fair?
Yeah, they put the teams a long way out, and they did that by design, obviously. So they're about 35 to 40 minutes out by the lake. And, I'm sure they've come down to the Strip at times this week. There's no doubt they've done that, particularly on Tuesday, which was both teams' day off. I'm sure the players got down here to the Strip. But for the most part, they've really been out in that lake area of Vegas, away from all the activity. So I'm sure it has not been as much fun probably for them, a business trip. Patrick Mahomes said that if the Chiefs win this game, he'll bring the team back for a party here in Vegas, and it'll be a lot more fun when they can go out and have a great time. And I'm sure that'll happen if the Chiefs go on and win this game. But right now, they're worried about the game. It's a business trip, and both teams seem to be treating it as a business trip.
Certainly the word immortality is there for Kansas City and Andy Reid, its coach, Patrick Mahomes, its quarterback, who may not even be halfway through his already storied career. This is for Andy Reid. Uncharted territory, another Super Bowl. He's got the second most postseason victories ever. Mahomes could get his third ring. For them, are they the top storyline in building, along with Kelce and Swift right there, not far in the background? Or do you think it's Kyle Shanahan squashing the demons of after losing a Super Bowl to this team a few years ago as an assistant coach, the big league with Atlanta against Belichick, Brady, and the Patriots? Which is kind of the bigger storyline? Is there something else besides those two in front and center for you?
Well, I think the Swift storyline has really won the week over. I mean, you go back to Goodell's press conference, and I was there on Monday. I mean, there were 24 questions asked. I think there must have been 5 questions to the commissioner about Taylor Swift and what she's done for the game. And she's brought in a different crowd for the game. And you look at Travis Kelce's jersey sales and everything else. So I think that she's brought in a younger, more female audience who maybe wasn't as keen on football before Taylor Swift began dating Travis Kelce, and now they're watching the games, and they'll be watching this game. And I'm not going to be surprised if this game sets a number of records for most viewers. We know it's the most watched thing on TV every single year, year after year after year, and it may be the most watched of anything ever coming up on Sunday. So that's kind of dominated the headlines, frankly. For a pure, we haven't written anything about Taylor Swift because we're a pure football standpoint here, and it has been more of the legacy of Patrick Mahomes and these Chiefs. I mean, you enter a rare company, as you said, immortality, when you win back-to-back championships. There's just something real special about that because it hasn't been done that much. And the last time was the 2003 and 2004 Patriots with Tom Brady. And the Chiefs had a chance to do that a few years ago, and they got blown out by Tampa, and they hope not to get blown out by the 49ers on Sunday, and hope to have that immortality. And I do think that Patrick Mahomes, with another victory in the Super Bowl, would kind of enter that conversation of the best ever. I mean, he's got a long way to go to match Tom Brady. I understand that, but just with what he's done at such a young age, you do start thinking about, is he going to catch Brady? Is he going to do all those things that Brady did? Winning one Super Bowl is really hard. Winning two is harder. Winning three is even harder than that. And then you just keep going. It's just not something that's easy to do. And, you look at the Dan Marinos of football who got there at a young age, and we all said, oh, they'll be back. He'll get plenty of chances to win a Super Bowl. And he never won one. So it is really, really special with what Patrick Mahomes and this era of Chiefs are doing right now.
Yeah, to join a list with Joe Montana, as well as Tom Brady, Terry Bradshaw, Troy Aikman with 3+ Super Bowls. You've covered some of those great ones. Charean Williams, so kind to join us here on 757 Saturday Sports Talk on Cova Sports TV and all over the web. She of NBC Sports Pro Football Talk. Follow her on Twitter or X as well at NFL Charean to get more links and details of all that she does covering the sport. As we look at the checklist of the matchups and the positions, if you will, you say quarterback check, and that's no knock to Brock Purdy, who's done a very good job. You would say probably a check mark right now to the Chiefs' defense, even though San Francisco's defense was playing pretty well early in the year. Kicking game with Butker. You might give the slight check of coaching, not so much that Reed's better than Shanahan, but you also throw in Spagnuolo, a veteran defensive coordinator. You give the Niners a check mark maybe with more explosive weapons, beyond, say, Kelce for the Chiefs. They have Ayuk, they have Samuel, they have Kittle, they have McCaffrey, player of the year guy. Where does San Francisco win this game, if they can win this game in your eyes?
Yeah, you're exactly right. I agree with you completely across the board. I would say I would add one thing, and that would be offensive line. I definitely would give that to the 49ers. So that's the two areas, I think, the weapons and the offensive line, that I think favor the 49ers. I do think they're going to have to force some turnovers. I think they're going to have to play very well defensively, something they haven't done in the postseason. They played two really close games in the postseason, closer than most of us predicted, closer than most of us think both of those games should have been, but they won both of those games. I got way behind against the Lions and obviously had to rally and come back, and, could have lost the Packers too. So they've been in close games, so that might favor the 49ers too if it comes down to the wire, simply because they've been there over the last two games and had to pull those things out where the Chiefs have just kind of dominated, frankly. Their competition, which was kind of surprising against the Ravens, but you never felt they were going to lose that game once the game kicked off, and the Chiefs kind of imposed their will from the beginning. But, they need to use all those weapons, obviously, and I think Kyle Shanahan will do a good job at that. I think the Chiefs' defense, as you pointed out, probably has less star players on it than 49ers, but gosh, they've played so well, especially in the postseason. And I think they're really underrated for how good they've played here late in the season and into the postseason. But high scoring, low scoring, I think it's going to be kind of in the middle there, maybe 24-20, 27-24. I do think it's going to be a close game that's going to come down to the end, and it may come down to whoever has the ball last. And you certainly don't want Patrick Mahomes, if you're the opponent, to have the ball last, because we saw what he did to Buffalo with 13 seconds left a few years ago in the AFC Championship game. So, you want to keep the ball out of Patrick Mahomes' hands as much as possible, and I think that's going to be a key for the 49ers.
Yeah, I'm with you completely, Shereen. I think it's in that 24-20, 28-24 type of game. And I've been going back and forth all week on who I think will ultimately win this. I'm a little surprised as many of the media pundits and those out there are leaning towards the Chiefs because I felt like the Niners are the more complete team all year, though KC's raised its game in the playoffs. Maybe San Francisco getting behind in the games with the Lions and Packers gives you some skepticism, plus that quarterback edge there. Yet the odds makers still have San Francisco as a slight favorite for this game. From the KC angle here, their perspective there, more of a concern or adjustment you think you have to be made with that offensive line, which had some issues on the tackle spots. You got to block, obviously, Bosa coming off the edge and what San Francisco can present you. Is that A, the bigger concern, or is it for B, with Reed and Spags and that defense trying to keep McCaffrey, that maybe that biggest game changer in this game, from going off, catching the ball, running the ball? Where do you think they've got to make more of the adjustments or have the bigger concern early in this ball game and as it moves along?
Yeah, I do think it's their offensive line and protecting Patrick Mahomes and opening up the running game for Isaiah Pacheco to be able to run. I think that's going to be a key for the Chiefs as well. Officiating to me is going to be a big key. Are they going to let those tackles hold and play and, do what they do? Or are they going to call it really tight and call some holding penalties early that scares those tackles and keeps them from holding the rest of the way? I think that's one key to this game that you're going to have to watch, is what those officials do in the first quarter, how tightly they call this game, how many penalties are they going to put out there. I'd be willing to bet that they don't want to call very much, but they may call a holding penalty early just to say, we're watching it, just don't hold. We don't want to call this the whole entire game, but don't do it. And so I do think officiating is something to watch early, and how closely they're gonna officiate this game.
Very good point there. A couple more we'll let you run here, and I'll finish up with one outside the Super Bowl, just the sport in general and the week and off season, if you will. Is there a unit or a player or two that you feel like is not getting the attention that could be an X factor in this game? We always know about the headliners. We've talked about a lot of them with Mahomes and Kelsey, and obviously Samuel and Kittle and McCaffrey, the two defensive studs, if you will, on the edge there, with Bosa and Jones, which are scrolling across our ticker as the leaders in sacks with a dozen plus on the year. Give me maybe a unit or player or two that could swing this thing that people aren't paying attention to coming in, that maybe you've picked up during the week and you're studying, that could be real factors.
I think Nick Bolton is a guy to watch. And that, if you go back to last year's Super Bowl, he had the big play. He had the defensive touchdown that really got the Chiefs going. It could take something like that again from that defense. And he's always around the ball, always trying to force turnovers, always seems to be in the right place at the right time. I think he's one player who could make a huge difference that people haven't really talked about this week, who obviously had the big play last year and could have another one this year, the way he's always around the ball and moves so well. So he's kind of the guy I picked on our show to kind of maybe be the unsung hero again this year. And so I'll stick with Nick Bolton to make a big play to make a difference.
I like that one. Good pick there. And he has a big factor at linebacker, 10-plus tackles in 3 of the last 4 games I see, looking at some of the game notes here. How about Purdy for a moment? You think there's more pressure on him for this game, or do you think he comes in with a chip on his shoulder saying, all right, I was Mr. Irrelevant, my story, okay. I've heard people say this week, and I've heard this, you covered it too, Kurt Warner. I don't know if it's quite Kurt Warner-esque, but there's a lot of, that buzz to it, yet it hasn't gotten the attention. They say it's a mismatch at quarterback. And if you remember when Warner played his second one against Brady, people don't know who Brady was per se. What's your feeling on him in this game? Do you feel like there's pressure, or do you feel like there's a little bit of I want to go out and prove that I can play at this level and on the big stage?
Nothing has seemed to faze him, which has been probably the most impressive thing about Brock Purdy. Is it just, whatever situation he's in, whatever has been dealt to him, whether it's the elbow injury, whether it's Kyle Shanahan coming to him and saying, hey, guess what? We're gonna see if Tom Brady's interested in being our quarterback next year. And if he is, how great is that going to be for you to sit on the bench and learn from the greatest of all time next year? And he just seems to handle all of those situations with class and just do things the right way, and nothing seems to faze him, and he doesn't get his feathers ruffled and all those cliches that that I could go on and use. And I just think that that's what's impressed me most about Brock Purdy. So I don't think this game's going to be too big for him. I don't think the lights are going to be too bright. I don't think the stage is going to be too big. I expect him to come out and have a good game. You go back to Jimmy Garoppolo a few years ago when he played in this game, obviously, and they had a chance to win it late against the Chiefs, and he had one of the worst fourth quarters we've ever seen of a quarterback in the history of the Super Bowl. You're not going to see that from Brock Purdy. I'm going to be very surprised if that's the Brock Purdy we see in the fourth quarter. If this game's close in the fourth quarter, I'm going to give the 49ers a really good chance to win this game because I just don't think that Brock Purdy is going to be phased in a close game. Like I said, the last two games they've played, he's pulled out close games and just done a very good job, especially in the Lions game, of coming back in the second half. So I expect him to play very well. And I think, I think he wants to prove something to people who still doubt him. And there are a lot of doubters still out there about Brock Purdy. But if he wins the Super Bowl, there's still going to be some people who say, yeah, but it's Deebo Samuel, it's Brandon Ayuk, it's Christian McCaffrey, it's this, it's that, it's George Kittle, it's that offensive line. It is all those things, but you still have to have a trigger man. You still have to have the quarterback to make those throws. And they've had quarterbacks there before, including Jimmy Garoppolo, who couldn't get it done. So Brock Purdy has a chance to do something really special that puts him in that conversation. In San Francisco, having won a Super Bowl with Steve Young and Joe Montana. Now, I'm not saying he's the greatest of all time if he wins a Super Bowl. I'm not saying that, but I'm just saying to win a Super Bowl for the 49ers puts you in that conversation with those guys as being a guy that can lead a team to the Super Bowl. And they should have, it's always hard to say, but they should have more opportunities after this with Shanahan's coaching, with Brock Purdy's play, with some of the weapons they have, and they will continue to have. They should have more opportunities to win more Super Bowls, but you never, ever, ever want to think you're going to get back because Dan Marino thought he was going to be here a million times, and he never got back and never won one. And that's just one example of guys who would have thought Aaron Rodgers would only have one at this point in his career. So you never take these opportunities for granted. And when they come, you better take advantage of them.
You're so absolutely right, Charean. I mean, I think people also thought Brett Favre would get to more than two, and he was on the verge of winning back-to-back, and he never got back. Came close with the Vikings when he left the Packers and had some snake-bit tough playoff losses. But the Chiefs going for their fifth Super Bowl. The Niners trying to win their sixth, their first since '94 with Steve Young when they beat the Chargers. Finish up on the game here, then we'll finish up on one more outside of it. Do you have it? You can make us wait for it online if you've got one. You have a pick, an MVP for us. What can they find out on the site as they check it out? Pro Football Talk and NBC Sports as we lead up to the game and then post-game as well.
Well, I do have an MVP vote, so that's going to be fun. I've voted a few times on this, so it's going to be fun to try to determine who's going to be the MVP. Hopefully it's an easy one. I hate when they're difficult. I like them when they're really easy to make those decisions. But as far as who wins the game, I think the Chiefs should win the game because of all the reasons you laid out there. I mean, they have the advantage at every possible angle you take, aside from the offensive line and the number of weapons that they have. But I just have a feeling, and maybe it's just my thought of how hard it is to win back-to-back championships, and the Chiefs had that opportunity a few years ago and got blown out. I'm just thinking about how hard it is to do this, to win back-to-back. And I just have a feeling that the 49ers are going to win this game because of that. That's my only, like I said, if you just look at it straight on paper, who should win this game? The Chiefs should win this game, but it's just a gut feeling I have that the 49ers are going to find a way to win this game. So I'm picking the 49ers in a close game, 27-24, 27-23, somewhere in that range. And I'll go with Christian McCaffrey for MVP because I think he's going to have to play a really big part in this game if they're going to have a chance to win it.
I can dig it. You know, I'm kind of on the same wavelength with you there, Charean, because I feel like everybody's picking the Chiefs. It's so hard to do. They had the week off in between. They had to come off the grueling physical games with the Bills and the Ravens back-to-back, and then the game I think would hurt their chances even more. But I feel like this is a coin flip game. It's going to go down to the wire, maybe last possession. It could come down to a kick, and you definitely don't want Mahomes having it last if you're San Fran. We'll finish up with you. We thank you so much for the time here immensely. Obviously, the Pro Football Honors, the Hall of Fame class, off-season buzz, a lot of different coaching changes. Some teams not changing coaches that we thought might be changing. What's kind of gravitated you the last couple of days here and the week in Vegas, and then through the off-season as we finish up the season in the Super Bowl? What will you kind of be following most closely?
Well, we were just talking today. You go to Monday. We're going to get home Monday, and the combines. We leave for the combine 2 weeks from Monday, so there is no off season. It's really crazy. Like, you just start on next season in 2 weeks, and here we are talking about 2024, 2 weeks after we get done with the 2023 season. So it just seems like it never ends. We do have all the coaching, head coaching positions finally filled, and then still some obviously assistant coaches to get done, and it's about time for the combine, and then free agency starts soon after that, and we're rolling into 2024.
She's one of the very best covering the National Football League. She was doing it for more than 30 seasons. Follow her on Twitter or X at NFL Charean. Bill Nunn Award in 2018, Hall of Fame voter, past president of the PFWA, writer for Pro Football Talk, NBC Sports as well, and also a distinguished alum of Texas A&M. Charean Williams, thank you so much. Enjoy the big game, your time in Vegas, and safe travels. We'll do it again sometime.
Thanks for having me, Matthew.
Our pleasure. That's Charean Williams with us here on 757 Saturday Sports Talk. We'll take a timeout and come back with more right here. Let's hear from some of our sponsors that make it possible for us. You're watching Cova Sports TV.